Welcome to our workshop on APA formatting. My name is Rebecca Beasley and I work for the Center for Writing and Languages. First, a few basics of APA format. You want to make sure that you always have 1-inch margins all the way around. Use Times New Roman font. Everything should be double spaced. And you want to have a running head in all caps at the top left of every page and your page number in the top right. In a few minutes, we'll be going over more details of the running head and how to set that up in Word. APA format has 4 essential parts: the title page, the abstract, the main body, and the references. For your title page, at the very top in the header, you'll have the words running head with a capital R and a lowercase h, followed by a colon and your title or the shortened title of your paper. Your header should have no more than 50 characters, including the words running head. The words running head only appear on the first page. Subsequent pages only have the title in all caps. Your title page will also include your page number, which starts at number 1 on the right-hand side. And then centered on the top half of the page, you'll have the title of the paper, your name, and the name of the school. Sometimes your professor will request additional information for your title page, and if that's the case, make sure that you include that. But if that's not specified, then you would only include these 3 things. For your abstract, you would have the running head and the page number in the header. The word abstract should be centered on the first line and be in plain font, no bold or italics or underlines. The first line of your paragraph should not be indented. An abstract is about 150 to 250 words, double spaced, and it's a brief, comprehensive summary of your paper, not an introduction. So you want to make sure that you include all of your main points as well as your conclusion in your abstract. And also make sure that you never have citations in it, because it is just a brief overview of your paper. There are 5 levels of headings in APA format, and these are used to separate sections of your paper and establish an information hierarchy. You use these headings in order, starting with level 1. Level 1 is centered, bold, and uses upper and lowercase letters. Level 2 is to the left, bold, and uses upper and lowercase letters. Level 3 is indented, bold, and uses only lowercase letters with a period. And as well, with levels 3, 4, and 5, you start your paragraph right after your heading on the same line. So you would not press enter after you've typed in your heading. You just continue after the period on the same line for your paragraph. Level 4 is indented, bold, italicized, and uses lowercase letters. And level 5 is indented, italicized, and uses lowercase letters. For in-text citations, you would use these whenever you are directly quoting, paraphrasing, or summarizing another author's work. When you are summarizing or paraphrasing, you use the author date format, which is the author's last name and the year of publication. When you are citing a direct quote, you would also include the page number. So you would have the author's last name, the year, and then the page number. If there is no author, like a person's name, you can use the name of the organization. This is common, especially when you're using websites. An example that I usually use is if you're citing something from the World Health Organization, there may not be a person's name attached to specific statistical information. So in that case, you would use the organization name as the author. If there is no organization and if there is no person's name, you really want to question whether this is a good source, because 99% of the time a good source will have some sort of organization or a person's name attached to it. If the publication date is unknown, again, first question whether this is a good source or not. And then if it is a good source but there is no date for it, then you would use ND in place of the date. Block quotes are 40 words or more, and the entire quote is indented. Make sure that you carefully count how many words are in your quote, because your professor will also count how many words are in there and take points off if it's 39 words and you've made a block quote, or if it's 40 words and you have not made a block quote. You do not put block quotes in quotation marks, but you do put the citation at the very end of the block quote. For works with two authors, you will list both authors every time and separate them with an ampersand. If you are introducing a quote, say if you were to say, according to Smith and Jones, then you would use the word and rather than the ampersand. But when it's a parenthetical citation or any time in your references, you would always use the ampersand. For works with 3 or more authors, you would list all of them in the first citation, but then in subsequent citations, you would only list the first author followed by et al. And you can see the example here. Classical works such as the Bible are only cited in text. You would never include that in your reference page unless your professor specifically asks for it. You want to make sure that you always include the reference and the version. If it's a common version, such as the King James Version or the New International Version, you can use the abbreviation for that. Otherwise, you'll want to spell out the entire version. And if you aren't sure whether it's common or not, be safe and spell out the entire thing. On your reference page, you will include your running head and the page number at the top in the header. Center the word references in plain font at the top of the page. And then every line after the first line of a reference should have a hanging indent, which is a 1/2 inch indentation from the margin. References are listed in alphabetical order by the author's last name. So you do not want to group them by what type of reference they are. They should all just be together according to the author's last name. Authors are listed last name first, followed by first and middle initials. All titles except for journal titles have only the first word capitalized. You also would capitalize the first word after a colon and any proper nouns. Article titles do not use quotation marks, underlines, or italics, but book titles should be italicized as well as the names of journals or periodicals. Now we're going to go through a few examples. For a book, you'll have the last name of the author followed by the first and middle initial, the year of publication followed by a period, the title of the work in italics, and then the location followed by a colon and the publisher. For the location, if it's a common, well-known city, you do not have to include the state, But if it's not a common city, then you would include the state using the standard postal abbreviations. You'll separate multiple authors with commas up to 7 authors. If there are more than 7, you will follow them, you will list the first 7 followed by an ellipsis and then skip to the last author where you would write the last author's name. Even if you have 8 authors, you still need to include the ellipsis even though it's not taking the place of anything. Also, make sure that you use an ampersand, never the word and. For an article in a periodical, you would have the author's last name and initials, the year of publication, the title of the article, which is in plain font with mostly lowercase letters, the title of the periodical, which is capitalized and italicized, the volume number, which is italicized, and then the issue number, which is not italicized but is in parentheses, followed by the page numbers, where you would find the article in the physical journal if you had that in your hand. Most of the time you'll be getting your articles from a database, and so in that case you will use the DOI, which stands for Digital Object Identifier. You will include the DOI at the very end of your reference. Typically, articles in psychology, counseling, fields such as that will have a DOI. Often articles in business, criminal justice, fields like that will not have a DOI, and so you'll have to use the URL, which is what we're getting to next. If you do have to use the URL because there isn't a DOI attached to it, you want to make sure that you use the URL for the journal homepage. Do not use the URL from EBSCOhost. Most professors are very particular about having links that link to the correct place on the internet. So at the bottom of EBSCOhost or whatever database you're using, usually there will be a link to the journal homepage. Click on that link to make sure it actually works, and then copy that one into your reference page. And always make sure that every link that you use in your references actually goes to where it is supposed to go to. For a website, you would have the author's last name or the name of the organization, the date, the title of the specific document that you were looking at, and then the full URL of that specific document. Often these URLs will be several lines long because you want it to take you to exactly the place that you found the information. If you look up several different web pages from the same site, I'll use the example of the World Health Organization again. If you're looking up different pages within their overall website, you need to cite each one of those as a separate reference so that you can have each of those URLs in your reference page. You want to make it as easy as possible for your professor to find where you got your information. As a professor, if I can't find where you got your information, I will take major points off. Now, one of the most common problems that students have is figuring out how to format their running head. This example is for Microsoft Office 2010 on a PC. If you use a different version or if you have a Mac, the steps are the same. Your screen will just look a little different. But it's the same principle and the same order of steps that you need to take to make it work. First, you want to insert your page numbers, which should be at the top of the page on the right. Then you'll want to find the button that says Different First Page. This is absolutely the most important step. If you don't do this, the entire header will be wrong. Then on your title page, you'll type in your running head, tab over twice, and add your page number 1. Once you've done that, you'll go down to your second page and then click on the left-hand side until your cursor appears over there. And then you will add your title over there. That's all I have for you today. Let me encourage you to make full use of the writing centers, the Undergraduate Writing Center, the Graduate Writing Center for residential students, and then the Online Writing Center for all online students who are not located in Lynchburg. And thank you.